We are going to go over RO Writer Smart Jobs in this webinar. My name is Jackie. I've been a trainer with RO Writer for almost 2 years. I've been in the automotive industry for over 30 years, longer than I care to admit. I've used RO Writer for over 14 years of that before I even started working for the company. Today, we're going to go over, as I said, smart jobs. We're going to focus on using smart jobs and configuring them to work for you. You're going to learn the benefits of using smart jobs, how to use them to speed up building estimates and repair orders, and how to create and configure smart jobs to match how you want them to work in your shop. So, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to launch a quick poll. Would you guys please tell me if you are currently using smart jobs in your shop today, or if this is all new? So far, it looks like a majority of the people are already using RO Writer Smart Jobs. So I'm assuming you're looking to learn a little bit better, make them work a little bit better, maybe tune up what you've already got in your system. Now, I do want to point out that if you are new to RO Writer and you've onboarded with us in probably the last 5-6 years with SmartyCat, you have a myriad, a very robust selection of smart jobs already in your system that just work out of the box. If you added it later or you've been with us for ever, you may have built them up on your own over time, and this will give you an opportunity to see how you can make them work better for you. Why should you use smart jobs? Well, I'm old enough to remember the bad old days where if you were working up an RO, you had to go to an actual paper labor guide, figure out what labor you had to do, how long it was going to take. Then you either went to an actual paper catalog for your vendors and lines to figure out what parts you need, or you called a parts store, give me your make and model, and hope to God what you were ordering was going to be right. That took ages. Smart Jobs and SmartyCat kind of changed that game. It's been available in RO Writer since Gen 1. New functionality, which I'm going to point out, Smart Oil became available in version 3, and today is just Smart Jobs in general. So Smart Jobs on a whole, why? One, you can quickly build estimates for repairs and services with the right parts. You make sure you're accurately pulling those parts and the labor. And it also gives you the opportunity to maximize your sales, which is, let's face it, guys, why we're here. And you can do it all in one shot with a smart job. Once you get them configured to work for you, you can use them the same. You get consistency across the shop between your service writers because you're quoting the same job with the same parts included, regardless of your make and model, across the board throughout the shop because you're all using the same job. The nice thing about smart jobs as well as SmartyCat in general is it allows you to compare your vendor's pricing and availability for a specific job. So some shops work on the good, better, best model. You can build good, better, best smart jobs so that you're not doing 3 different ones. You can tell them, okay, if you're keeping it for a year, you want 224, 336, whatever your sales model is. You can configure your smart jobs to work that way. To me, it is a sales tool as well as speed. The faster you're working it up, sooner you're presenting to the customer, better chance you have of making that sale. So that's why you should. Now let's get into how to use it. So I'm going to launch another poll for you guys, and I want you to tell me if you are currently using smart jobs, which one are you guys going to use the most? And I kept it basic: brakes, wiper blades, battery, hoses, oil changes. We know we use them. Well, it looks like brakes are a pretty clear winner on this one. So we'll start with that, and then we'll go into a couple others as we go along. So I'm going to pick on poor Mr. Chris today and his 2013 Toyota Corolla. Okay, you open the RO, and you press the Smart Job button. You select the category. In this case, I want to do front brakes. And I want to do front pads and rotors. Down here at the bottom of the screen, if you can see where I'm pointing down here, you've got a legend. It's counterintuitive in that if you want to exclude something from being searched, you press the button. So if I don't want to look for pads, I put the red X, and it will not share. It won't look that up, just so you have an idea. In this case, you'll notice mine's fully loaded. And what I mean by that is it kind of gives you an idea of what smart jobs can do if you've got skin in the game and you take the time to build them the way you want them. I want to make sure that my service writer doesn't forget to include brake clean. We all battle parts deficit. There isn't a shop out there today. If there is, kudos to you, man, because it's a hard thing to get over. I want my service writers presenting a flush with every brake job that I do. No different than power steering flush with a pump or a rack, or coolant flush with hoses or water pump. Okay, so mine includes brake clean. I want my service writer presenting brake fluid flush with the brake service. I want the kit to go out and try and find me pads, rotors, and just to hedge my bets, I wanted to look for hardware. I know the majority of brake kits now, when you buy pads, it includes hardware, but every once in a while you get some odd ones. And when it goes to look for the labor, I wanted to check both pads and labor. You don't want to assume that the car you're working on is a hat style rotor that just pulls on and off. You've got those Volkswagens, so you guys work on Euros, where your issue is going to be that there's studs holding that rotor on and it's going to add for a little time. So I kind of hedge my bets when I build these kits. Once you have them built out and you say, go, and you'll notice up here in green, it's going to tell you exactly what function is performing at that moment. So it's looking for my pads. I want to point something out if some of you guys are newer to SmartyCat in general. You'll notice this green column here. Pay attention, because this column tells you, in this case, stock. That means I've got these pads on the shelf. I can hang it, bang it, get it out the door, no muss, no fuss. This has got to come from my local parts store. This has got to come from my DC, from a distribution center. So that allows you to take into delivery time into account before you quote this job to the customer. You'll notice, I'm going to minimize this for a sec. I can pull up my other vendors and compare across vendors for pricing and availability, because sometimes you get weird stuff that isn't necessarily on everybody's shelf. So I'm going to grab these Akebono, and that's another thing. If you'll note underneath here in red, like this one, tells me it contains hardware. So if I select those adaptive ones, I don't need to select hardware separately because it's already coming with the pads. So pay attention to the red on both parts and labor. So I'm going to grab these Akebonos. I'm going to tell it next. So now I've already selected the pad. I'm going to tell it next. Now you'll see, notice it changed. Now it's telling me I'm looking for rotors. I'm going to grab rotors. I know it comes with a hardware. I can completely skip that screen. Now it's going to ping out and grab my labor. So I want to replace both pads front. Again, pay attention to the red that you see. The red that you see underneath kind of gives you important information. This will tell you what it includes, what it doesn't, if there's something else that you need to look for. So in my case, like I said, I hedge my bets. So I'm grabbing both the labor from my pads, and when I say next, it's going to go out and grab the rotor. Now look, it's telling me it also includes replacing the pads. So I know I'm covered on my hour that I grab for the pads. I don't need to grab additional labor. In the instance where it was more than what I had, I could grab the additional labor to make sure that I'm selling this job and giving my technician enough time to finish it, and I'm not hurting myself on what I'm ordering. So I'm going to grab, I don't need to grab the labor. I'm going to tell it next. I'm going to assign my technician in this screen. It's already mapped to my labor operation for front pads, so I don't need to pick anything here. And I tell it post and exit. Because of the way I have my kit built for my smart job, it pulls the pads, the rotors, the labor, the brake cleans, so it doesn't get forgotten, as well as that flush. So that when my service writer goes to present this to the customer, he can present it as both the brake replacement, which is a need, and a should for the brake fluid flush, and Mr. Customer, I want $790 of your hard-earned money. So let's go back and do a couple others. Now I'm going to pick up some of the other puppies in there. Let's go for radiator hoses. Again, I'm going to do smart job. I'm going to go to my category and select cooling and heating. I'm going to grab my upper and lower radiator hose. And again, I have mine loaded. Let's see if I can make this a wee bit bigger. There we go. It's going to include the coolant flush. It's going to include clamps and at least some coolant. Even though I've got the flush on there, they may decline it. So I want to make sure it doesn't get forgotten. The radiator hoses and the labor to replace it. I'm going to tell it, go. It's going to ring out. It's going to tell me what hoses I need. Again, important notice in the red. Then I'm going to grab the labor, and it gives me for lower, upper, or both, because you have concurrent. So we're going to grab the one for both because I'm changing both hoses. Tell it next. You'll notice in this case, it is not mapped to one of my existing labors. All you got to do is drop down, find the labor op that it matches. Now, what happens if I've got more than one thing that I want to build out on the ticket because I'm working off an inspection for my technician? It also needs battery and wipers. Haha, we account for that. Instead of doing post and exit, just tell it post. And that'll bang you straight back to this screen. I can come up and go battery, install. You'll notice it's going to go for my part, my labor, and I've got mine built to include the protectant as well. And then we're going to tell it go. Again, I can see the fact that I have both these batteries. Well, it's the same battery. I've got this battery on the shelf ready to rock and roll. I'm going to select it, tell it next. Grab my labor. Again, look at your red. This includes the testing, so I don't need to go back and grab this 310s. It's already included in this labor. And now that I've got those both worked up, what the heck? Let's do wipers. I'm going to come down here and find my category for wipers. I'm going to replace my wiper blades. It's going to look for my blade. I don't charge my customer for R&R, so I'm not going to have a labor time come up, but I am going to make sure I'm covered for my washer fluid when I top off. And this will tell me underneath, takes a 16 for the passenger, and it takes a 26 for the drivers. Grab that, got my labor, already have my tech, post and exit. So I just built all those jobs out one shot. So how do I make mine work like that, Jackie? Well, that's a secret and I don't want to share. But that's why we're here, so I'm going to show you. So let's build out that brake job the way that I have it configured in my system. I'm going to go to configuration. Now this is in RO Writer's configuration for those of you that are not used to going in and building their own stuff out. So I'm going to slow down a bit for you guys here. I'm going to go configuration, labor, smart jobs. And that opens the screen. Now, if you get in here and you do a drop down and you've got nothing, that's what this little plus sign is for. If you press that plus sign, it will bounce you out to another screen and it will allow you to create a brand new category for your smart jobs. In this case, I've already got mine. I'm going to grab my front disc. If you don't have a job, you are going to add a job. In my case, I'm going to edit an existing job. I'm going to tune up what I've already got in my system. So I'm going to grab my existing kit and I'm going to tell it edit. You notice the only thing I've already gotten here is my description. Now that description is what comes across the top, just like on your labor ops. Whatever the first line is, that's what is included on the ticket. I have mine looped to my labor category and labor operation for installing front disc pads. When this left side, when I put this into SmartyCat, I want it to look for what labor. So I'm going to look at the labor guide. I'm going to do add. I'm going to come up here and put in what I'm looking for. I want it to look for my brake pads. In my case, because I'm paranoid, I always want to look for rotors. So I'm going to come in here and do brake rotor. So now I'm telling it I wanted to look for the pads and the rotors. I'll come back to this button before I close it out because it's kind of a cool trick. So we're going to go brake pads. front. There we go. Cart before horse. And I also wanted to check those rotors. So I'm going to come in here and do brake rotor. Front. Now, on mine, I've got it including the flush. So I come over here to other labor because that's going to be in my system. I'm going to do add, find the category I keep my flushes in, and I'm going to find my brake flush. I'm going to tell it okay. And I want it to include that brake clean. So I'm going to go into my inventory, find my brake clean, and slap a can of brake clean on there so it's never forgotten. Now, this little box here, I think it's cool because some of you, if you are in the Midwest or East Coast, we salt our roads. And if any of you have ever tried to take a tie rod off in book time on a car that's more than 3 years old, it's not going to happen because of the salt corroding everything. So you have the ability to build additional kickers over book time on those jobs that you feel are necessary. So if you want to add a kicker on certain jobs that you are building smart jobs for, you can add that additional time. And what they'll do is if book time is 1 hour, it'll do 1.2. So you have that option right here as you're building them in. You can also put a minimum pricing in. You can put a package price in if it's something that you package price. You can even lock it if with a minimum. So if you don't want anybody to be able to go lower than what it is, you can reduce that price, set that minimum price so nobody can go lower, and you can lock it so they can't change the time or rate or charge. So that is exactly how that job that I ran first is configured. You come in and you add your parts that you want to look up, your labor you want to look up, any additional stock inventory part that you want to include with that job, and any, I'm going to say related or kinetic type labor operation like the flush that you want to include. So if you got tie rods, you build a job for tie rods, you can have it automatically pull your alignment through so it never gets forgotten. If you're building a rack through, a power steering rack, you can include it to look up the outer tie rods as well, because most racks come with inners, not with outers. So you can build these out so they're as robust as you want them to be. And as a result, you don't forget things. And you have those sales opportunities, and it improves your sales, let alone your efficiency when you're building these things. The bigger you make them, the less time it actually takes. It's almost counterintuitive. So as I said, if you've got already in your system, so if I come back in here and go into Smart Jobs, if you come in here and you just randomly pick something, let's just go rear drum, and I come in here and edit. If it's not already linked to a labor operation, you want it to come through with a labor operation, you can come into those set ones and just come in here and choose your labor category and your labor op that matches and edit what's already in the system. If you're starting from scratch, you can literally just add a job, pick your category, build it up exactly the way you need it if you don't already have some in the system. All right, so now we're going to get to some of your questions. Let's see what we've got here. Why does my local inventory show under my parts suppliers? That's more a function of Smart ECAD as opposed to Smart Jobs. But you can, when you go under Configure and you look at your coverage, you should have a local inventory in this list. And you should have a local inventory here to the left-hand side. If you don't, that is something that support can help you quickly set up. Make sure you know what vendors you carry on your local inventory so they can help you set the coverage at the same time. And make sure those line codes match what you have in your inventory. Will Smart Labor override any labor operation? Only if you configure it to do so. Let's open up poor Reed's car here again. It asks you if you want to append, replace when you go through these. So you can choose. If you've got it set, you can set that where you've got your package pricing and it won't override anything. But as you're going through this, so if your brake job comes through at 7/10 and it says 1.5, You can choose as you're going through. You have this choice here where you can post to it. The other option down here, this button, use, depend, predefined, append, or replace. So if you use the predefined, it's going to have whatever you have in your labor op. If you append, it's just going to add the description and not touch it. If you replace it, it's going to take what we've got in the system and carry it all the way across. You can stack your smart jobs, meaning if you start here with one smart job, once you work all the way through it, instead of saying post and exit, you stay in smart jobs and you tell it post, and it takes you right back here to select the next smart job from the next category. Is there a way to set stock parts to auto-populate based on matching parts in your existing inventory? When you run the smart job, your local inventory will always come up first at the top of the screen. So if I do, let me pull this battery again here, and I'm just going to look specifically at the parts so you can see what I'm babbling about. My local inventory will always show up first. So if I stocked a 7535 battery, there would be a green next to this, and it would show you that you had it on the shelf. When you look up anything in RO, when you're using a SmartyCat from an open repair order, it automatically matches it to the VIN, your make model. So it's going to tell you is 7535 is the battery for that vehicle. I have it on the shelf. It'll pull up. As long as this number was in here, it would automatically show. And I don't think I got stock batteries in here. So let's do brake pads so you can see what I'm talking about. See how this one's stock? Because it's there, it's my local inventory. If I had this line code, and I'm going down a rabbit hole a little bit, if I had an ADO as a line code in my local inventory coverage, it wouldn't show, it would show there, but it would also show up here on the local inventory tab. So you wouldn't have to go through the vendors, you'd know what was on the shelf. If you're looking to get your local inventory set up or help with that, reach out to support. They can help you get on the right line with that one. We use Big O sublet tires and alignment. Can we figure to set a cost versus a sub? Oh yeah, but that's a function of your labor operation. So if you come in here and do labor, and then you go to your operations, right? So let's say you were talking about your alignments. All right, just for grins, let's say this was. If you had this labor operation set at the BARC sublet, you can build this in. There's not going to be a time on it. There's just going to be the charge. And then you would just have to add what you're looking for, what your retail is. You add your retail to it, but your cost may change with your sublet. So when you add that through, you go back and pull a labor op. That was the one I picked on. See, it'll automatically come through here. So all you have to do is put your cost in, but if you're a set price on your charge, you can build that charge in no time, sublet box already marked, add that labor operation to the smart job, and it'll add on every single time the same way. But when you get the bill invoice from Big O or whatever company you're using for, especially if you're using the accounts payable app, you need to put that invoice number in here and the cost. There's no way to have it save that cost in there permanently. Truly appreciate the time you spent with me today. Now, a couple things I want to point out. If you don't have any smart jobs and you want either help tuning up what you've got, help building up what you've got, or you don't have any and you need us to drop an entire set of smart jobs into your system, send an email with what you're looking for to training@rowriter.com. Training like training for a marathon at rowriter.com, and we can deal with whatever request and figure out the best way to get you where you need to be. Remember, there's a whole section on docs.rowriter.com on how to build and use smart jobs. And there is videos on our YouTube channel on how to use and build smart jobs. And we keep adding more and more and more all the time. There is a playlist there called Everyday Use. You will find the smart job videos in there. And also docs.rowriter.com docs.rowriter.com, docs.rowriter.com. That's kind of the everything you ever wanted to know about our writer, but were too afraid to ask. If you're more a step-by-step written instructions, there's a lot there. If you're like, oh, heck no, I want help doing this, you can absolutely reach out to Trainee at RO Writer, and we'll be more than willing to call you back, figure out what you've got, where you want to go to get you where you need to be with these things. Last but not least, guys, I really want to thank you for spending some time with me today. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Have a great day, guys.